Hello people, and welcome to one of my favourite rides in gorgeous Kent routes that I'm doing. This one's one of my favourite climbs, which I include in quite a lot of the rides that I do because I enjoy it so much, and it's just a lovely place to go to. Anyway, it's called Beddlestead Lane, and basically how I get to it from West Wickham is, if you look on the map, there's a big crossroads at West Wickham, which is basically the town itself. You go down Glebe Way, across the roundabout at the bottom of it, and you head up the other side. You'll eventually, on the A232, you'll come across a road on the right, just as the road starts to rise up, called Gates Green Road, which is, well, basically you see the corner of a green there. Turn right there. You can also access it with the A232 using Kingsway. Again, turn right, just follow it down the end and you'll join it. Okay, now if you travel about a quarter of a mile down it, you come to a road called Nash Lane, which I've just literally ridden up just a second ago on the video here. I've now turned left and I'm on Lamb's Road, which is a long road and it's surrounded by fields either side of it. It's quite beautiful, and I've tried to reduce the video size as much as I can here by getting rid of a lot of the travelling, because as you can see I don't go very quickly, but that's besides the point. Anyway, as you can see, it's really green both sides. There are gaps between the hedges here, and you can see absolutely gorgeous countryside both ways. It's used by lots of cyclists, as you can see. You have to be a little bit careful of cars and vans. Most of them are pretty good, but occasionally you'll get some guy speeding down here, so just do be a little bit careful. Anyway, once you've done that bit, you'll head towards the end of Lamb's Road, which is where I'm coming up to now. Now here, eventually, we'll be going across a junction. This is the junction of Sheep Barn Lane and King Henry's Drive. So you've got King Henry's Drive on the right hand side, and you've got Sheep Barn Lane on the left hand side. Whatever you do, don't turn left down Sheep Barn Lane. It's a great descent, but you've got this really steep hill on it called Jules Hill, I believe it is. And it's really steep, and lots of cars use it at very high speeds as a roller coaster. It's a road I avoid, not because the climb's particularly steep. It's about 20 to 25%, I believe, but it's just due to the traffic coming up and down it. You get big trucks, cars and vans using that heavily from the airport. So do watch out for that one. If it's one you want to try, by all means do so, but I've warned you, traffic wise it can be a little bit bad. As you can see on the right hand side here, just before we come to the junction where King's Henry Drive is, there's a football pitch, and there's a site which is used by quite a lot of dog walkers. Actually, on the right hand side here I see lots of dogs being exercised. Quite literally, if you follow the road in the opposite direction, you'll be going past the Metropolitan Police Dog Training Centre, which when you come out of Nash Lane faces you. Anyway, here we are at the junction. As you can see, lots of lovely greenery, which I absolutely love. Be careful going across the crossroads. In this particular instance I got straight across, which is unusual. But bear in mind, this is not particularly heavy traffic wise. This is done, I believe, when I filmed this at about 11 o'clock in the daytime, so it's not particularly busy here. Sometimes on the weekend it can be a little bit busier, but you'll be running into mostly cyclists here. Anyway, this is the next bit of road. When you've crossed over here, it climbs up quite nicely through some lovely hills and scenery as well. But on this particular section here, we're heading down towards I can't remember what the name of the road is here actually. Skid Hill Lane, that's it, Skid Hill Lane this is called. It's mostly uphill, it's a bit undulating, you have some roller coastery bits coming up in a minute. There's plenty of place for cars and things to overtake here, but if you've got some behind you, there are bulges in the road here which you can slow down at and wave them past, which is what I tend to do. I'm not in the habit of trying to get down roads particularly fast. As I say, I enjoy watching and seeing what's going on around me. I have a mirror on my bike which enables me to see what's going on behind me, which is really good actually. I was quite reluctant to put it on my bike because it spoils the looks, and it's not aesthetically pleasing to the rest of the bike. But once it's on there, you think, so, oh, actually, do you know what? That's a really good idea. Anyway, there you have it. That's what I've done. This is one of the roller coastery bits with a little bit of a steep kick up at the other side. But if you can look through the hedges and things here, there's absolutely fantastic scenery. I've stopped many times along these roads and taken the camera out to take still photos and things. Although it does get a bit heavy now. I've got a tripod that I bring out with me, which is supposed to be a lightweight travel one. I put it on a camelback along with the camera, batteries, filters, and a few other bits and pieces as well when I take my photography out. That's one of the things that I like to combine with my cycling, because normally if I drive out here, there's literally nowhere to stop where you'll be left in peace to take your photos and things. So a lot of my heavier camera equipment stays at home. So I take out a lightweight bridge camera, which is my Sony DSC-RX10, which is absolutely fantastic camera for this kind of thing. I've got DSLRs as well, but I'm forever struggling with what lens to bring out with me, so invariably end up with 3 lenses, only one of which I end up using. So the bridge camera is absolutely superb for that. You've got a sort of between I think it's a 18 or a 20 to 200mm lens, so it caters for pretty much everything. If you want to do a bit of bird watching or so close up, you can get away with that, but generally speaking I like to do the landscape photography, so that's why I'm out here. As you can see, we're coming along Sheep Barn Lane, is it? Yeah, we're still along the same road. You can see the fields off to the left here. There are also fields to the right, but the hedge-wise is a little bit more dense towards the right, and I don't think they're quite as nice looking as the ones on the left. Actually, I like the rolling hills to my left. But anyway, whichever way you go, it's still a beautiful view, whether you're looking left or right. It's far better than looking at rows and rows of houses or shops and things as you pass through a town centre. Anyway, this particular section here is a little bit downhill. As you turn this corner, which is quite sharp and at speed, beware of cars coming on your right hand side there in the opposite direction. But if you look over to the left here in a second, I've tried to pan round without running into the trees, which I haven't actually done before, I'll hasten to add, not for the lack of trying though. But anyway, over to the left we've got this absolutely fantastic view, which could, wouldn't look out of place in somewhere like Yorkshire or so. But I'm stopping in a second and you'll get an idea of what I'm looking at. This was taken again with my DSC camera. I didn't bring the tripod out because it doesn't pan that well, being a lightweight tripod. But as you can see, as we're looking over here, that's the road we're going to be heading down straight ahead now in the valley. We go downhill and then it climbs uphill to basically to the ridgeline you see in the distance. Fantastic view. You get to see sheep. You get to hear lots of cars behind you when you're trying to take photos, which can be a bit disconcerting if you're trying to concentrate. But I mean, look at these views. Look, this was taken with my camera on stills. I'm running a neutral density filter on these to get the contrast up and reduce some of the bright light that was on here, but the colour separation and things is absolutely fantastic. And this is the first time I've shot this with a decent camera actually. Sometimes I take a compact out with me and that's not quite so good. As we're heading up along here now Sheep Barn Lane turns into Hessia's Drive? Hessia's Drive, I think it's Hessia's Drive. Hessia's Road actually, it might be. And when it bears right, so as the road bends round, it gives the road a different name, but you're on the same road, you're just following it round a bend, for want of a better word. Now, when you round this corner, you will see a junction coming up. Now, the junction's got 3 exits really. It's got a T-junction at the end, but just before the very end you've got a sharp left-hand turn, which is right here where the giveaway sign is. Now when you turn onto it, this is Beddlestead Lane. Now the first part of it is quite a steep drop. Bear in mind that cars and agricultural equipment, so some big four-wheel tractors, come up and down this road. So I don't tend to speed down this. I've seen people doing absolutely horrendous speeds down here, and sometimes if a car's coming the other way, or if it wouldn't leave you much choice other than to disappear into a hedge here, I don't believe. So I don't go fast down it. It's not my idea of fun, especially since you can't see the left-hand curve coming up. You can look over the hedges sometimes and see cars coming from the road further down, but it's not so easy, and especially when it's overgrown or been the growth period like it has been, with lots of rain, lots of sun. Anyway, I was following this car down the road here. I'm keeping pace with it easily. I could come off the brakes here and really scoot down this hill. My bike with its big brakes and large tyres is more than competent going downhill, but it's me that literally doesn't want to go fast down these. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. You know, this is a classic case of not having the bottle anymore to proceed down these sort of routes very, very quickly. Anyway, here we go. We're literally bottoming out now on the valley, and from here on upwards it starts to rise. Now the great thing about this particular direction is it's a long climb, but it's not particularly steep. If you go in the opposite direction, you get a long descent, which you can really build up some decent speed on, but you've got the steep ramp that we've just come down the opposite direction. It is quite steep. I don't know what the angle is, because it's very difficult to see when you're coming downhill to actually measure what the difference is between them, but it's quite steep. I would say it's in the 15 to 20% region, I would say, but again, don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on the angles, but it can be hard work going up the opposite direction, although you do have a lot of speed coming in the opposite direction. Again, be careful of vehicles down here. Some give way, most are quite courteous, some don't, and they just expect you to get out the way, but that's some car drivers for you, unfortunately. Anyway, where we come up here, I've just managed to take a slow stop here, and I was after some more photos from the bottom here, looking up at the top of the valley where I just was, to take the original video and footage from further up. There's a memorial here to a guy called Paul Skelly, which I stop at quite often when I'm going up here. Sometimes I take photos, sometimes I just take a drink, but I sit there and chat sometimes. I don't know why, but it just makes me feel good. Anyway, these are the photos that I took from the bottom of the valley. If you look at the top of this road here where the ridgeline is, not this one, the previous one, that's where I was taking the video from the earlier one, so we're at the bottom of the valley now. Just over there, the top of that ridgeline there, that's where I was taking the previous photos. As you can see, absolutely fantastic scenery. As I say, I've tried to reduce the amount of roadwork on here, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the climb and what the roads are around here, so you'll think to yourself, do you know what, that actually looks really nice, I'd like to visit that. Coming from West Wickham to get to this part takes me about 35 minutes. Most decent riders, if you're a fitness rider or you're fairly sporty, etc., you'll probably manage to do this in about 25-30 minutes. As I say, I get out on my bike to get out on my bike, not to go fast, so you'll get here regardless of which way you want to do it. Either way, you're going to enjoy this ride anyway. It is absolutely fantastic. The roads are great, and on my left hand side here, where you can see the tall hedges, behind there by about a mile and a half, I would say, maybe a mile, is Biggin Hill Airport, and as you'll see later on in the video, you see some interesting aircraft. I've got a real interest in aircraft, always have had, and you see some interesting aircraft, one of which is they have a twin-seater Spitfire, which does trips out with people, and sometimes they have another plane flying alongside it shooting videos of said people having their flights and things, which is quite interesting to watch. But the main thing is with the airport is I've seen all sorts of interesting C-130 Hercules, the A300M. I've seen that fly over here a couple of times, and occasionally you see some attack helicopters and things just stopping in there. I think maybe they refuel or so, or use it as a refueling point or a pickup point or whatever. But as I say, if you like aircraft, it's quite an interesting place to hang about in. Anyway, as we're coming up to this part, there's riding from this direction, there's 2 to 3 ramps or kick-ups basically on this, where it suddenly gets a little bit steeper there than it was before. If I'm feeling particularly fit at those points, I'll change up a gear, basically get out the saddle and try and do 3 or 4 pedal revolutions before I sit back down and decide I've had enough. But no, sometimes I use this for training bits to boost my fitness and things. But generally speaking, I like to spin up hills. Everyone else goes past me. As you see, I saw the motorbike coming up, so I moved over to a section where he'd get past. The racket was driving me mad, to be honest, but hey, there you go. So this particular part here of the climb is a particularly stiff bit. I don't know what the angle is. Again, I would say the average angle here is probably about 8% or so. It's not too bad if you've got the gearing. I see lots of people grinding up such huge gears up here sometimes, and I really, I really don't know why people do that. Just buy the correct gears for your bike basically, or swap them over. It makes a world of difference to your enjoyment when you're out there. I do like tackling hills. I'm not Chris Froome by anyone's stretch of the imagination. However, I do enjoy climbing up hills, and I like to be able to be independent enough basically on my bike to be able to tackle any climb that I come across. And with the gearing on this bike and my other bike, I can tip my hat. I can really not fly up these climbs, but I can spin up them very, very slowly. But it's getting me out. I'm tackling climbs. I mean, there's quite a few climbs around here that hit over the 20% mark, and I've got up them all. Not quickly, but I have got up them, and it's something that I could do. Quite a few of my rides involve sort of between 500 and 700 meters of climbing, depending on how long I'm going out for. So it can be a bit challenging if you're new to riding. This probably isn't a climb for the beginners, because basically the whole area is quite hilly. So you're going to tackle a few hills before you even get here. But if you've got a year or so's experience, and you're used to a few climbs, and you have the right gearing on your bike, this one shouldn't be a problem for you. And you can always stop off in a couple of places and just look at the view. That particular bit there goes down to a farm. There's a little bit further on which also goes down to the left, which goes to a road called Norheads Lane, which drops down from Biggin Hill Airfield, more or less. If you come from the opposite direction, that also involves a really steep climb, which is in the region of about 20%, and that is a long climb as well. But it's really one if you've got a mountain bike, because once you get through Norheads Lane, it's really quite gravelly and off-roady. I can do it on Frank, my 29er drop bar bike, but it's got large volume tyres, which enable me to sort of scoot over those bits. This guy was quite nice. He moved right over on the roads when I made way for him, and he danced his car over the potholes basically to avoid me, which is quite considerate. So I'll doff my cap to you. Thank you very much. Appreciated that. As I say, when I see cars coming up behind me, I try to pick a place, so I'll take a primary position in the road beforehand, but when the road widens a bit, I'll move over to the left and actually wave them through, so they know that I can slow down if I need to. I've got a place to pull into, but generally speaking, both of us can keep going and make that happen. This is towards the top of Beddlestead Lane. If you look over to the fields, there's probably something there that's, I don't know, wheat or whatever. I don't know much about plants, to be honest with you. I occasionally like eating them, but Yeah, that's a field. That's a working field over the left. I see plenty of tractors and things over there, and planters and all sorts of people. I wave at them sometimes when they're out doing work, and occasionally they wave back actually, which is quite nice. But not all the time. But if they're busy, they're busy. What can you say? You don't want some idiot leaning over the fence basically as he's going past, waving at you. If you have your handfuls doing stuff, basically doing work. But there you go. As we come to the top here, the mast to your right is a telecommunications mast, and this is actually called Titsy Hill over towards the right and left at the very top, and I think it's one of the highest points over here actually. I know in my Garmin it says it's about 300 meters I believe over this way. Generally speaking, if you get to the very top of this hill, geographically, if you go over the top of the ridgeline, you have to turn left or right and left to do it. But it will take you down into the valley, but that ridge line is quite high. It takes you towards the M25 Westerham direction, which is quite nice. And there's plenty of rides from that direction as well. There's one that I do towards Toys Hill, which is probably slightly towards my left here at about 11 o'clock on this particular part. And it's a really, really nice long hill actually, with a nice view at the very top. There's plenty to see there. And towards the left there's further rides that I do which go towards Braisted Hill, Hogstrough Hill, I think it's Sanderstead Hill, it might be Sanderstead Hill. And then if you go a bit further round, you've got Star Hill, which is one of my favourites as well, purely because the road is really nice. It's quite smooth, but it's quite a steady climb, which is quite steep. Actually, it hasn't got much in the way of ramps on it. It just keeps going up. But it's a nice climb, and the road's wide enough for cars and bikes to get through there. So it's usually a happy medium to take anyway. Anyway, as I've come to the top here, I decided to shoot a bit of full video footage of myself, so don't be afraid. But this is the part that I quite enjoyed because you'll see the surprise bit at the end anyway. But yeah, as you can see, fields both sides, beautiful place. I'm now gasping and reaching for my bottle and starting to pull things out of my bag so I can get filming. But yeah, this is a particularly good part. Actually, as far as I was concerned, to get to this part I always enjoy anyway. I know I'm pretty much done here on this climb. So here we go guys, this is Beddlestead Lane. It's one of my favourite climbs around here. It's quite local to me. It takes me about 35-40 minutes to get to the bottom of it, just down there. The climb itself is about 3 and a bit kilometres. It's not particularly steep, but it is long, and it's got about 3 ramps in it basically that make it a little bit more challenging for people. It's not really a beginner's climb because it is quite long, and if you go down the other way you've got a long descent and a steep ramp at the other end of it, which is quite interesting as well. But the scenery around here is really fantastic, and that's the reason I get out on my bike. I wouldn't class myself as competitive in the least, so I like to get out when the weather's good, or when the weather's particularly interesting. That can be quite overcast, but it's got good light. I like to take the camera out, which is what you can see here. But it makes it interesting. I also go out in wet weather as well. I've got mud guards on the bike, I've got wet weather gear. It doesn't really bother me that much, although the motivation to actually walk out the door when it's raining can be quite difficult to find sometimes. But once you're out there, it's absolutely fine, and every time I've come back from a ride like that, I've always been glad I've gone out. So I'm going to be doing a few more videos on other hills. We've got things like Braisted Hill here, Star Hill, which is further around the M25 over my shoulder here, and Westerham Toys Hill. There's quite a few decent roads here, and the thing is, they're not that busy with traffic if you come out at the right time of day. I'm lucky enough that I can come out in mornings on weekdays and things, which makes it a lot more fun. And I don't know whether you can hear that in the background there. That's the Spitfire coming back to Biggin Hill that goes out a couple of mornings a week that I normally see. They do interesting flights from the museum there. But it's great to see. I love hearing them. It's a very distinctive sound. But anyway, I'll do a few more videos of hills and things, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks a lot. Bye. Okay, and now we're pushing on for the rest of the ride. This is the ridge line I was talking about. If you can go straight over there, apart from having a huge accident with the trees and things, that would take you down towards sort of Western Braisted direction. Where we're going now is we're trying to finish off the ride. As far as I'm concerned, I've got to the hill climb that I wanted to do. Pretty much from now it's mostly downhill. This particular road, I believe, is the 2024, I believe, and as you can see, it leads down to Chestnut Avenue, which I like. This will take you down to a golf club, but the road is particularly bumpy. There's some sections of this which are off-road. Basically just there's one junction there which takes you further down, but if you stay left and follow it round, it's quite nice. As I say, this particular road here, Chestnut Avenue, you meet people occasionally coming the opposite direction with horses. Get a lot of joggers, you get a lot of SUVs with golf bats in the back, so do be aware of that. But generally speaking, you can follow this road down and not see another human being, so it's quite nice. It has a little bit of a steep rise in the middle, but it's nothing that compared to what you've already gone through, it's nothing really. And again, it's quite a nice place to stop occasionally and just listen to what's going on around. I find these particular trips, especially through these wooded areas, very, very calming for me. Whenever I'm out here, even if it's really bad weather, if it's raining also, I still occasionally stop, have a bit of shelter, have a drink, and just stand around and listen for a bit, to be honest with you. As you can see, this section of the road becomes unmade. It has been worse than this because it gets torn up with SUVs and golf bats and things, but it's a road that's not particularly protected by tarmac, so it will get torn up, and when it's been raining for 2 months or so, it becomes very soft, and the vehicles that go down, they tend to tear it up a bit more. I don't tend to do that on my bike because the bike's a bit lighter. I wouldn't say I'm a bit lighter, but the bike's a bit lighter. But as you see, as you can go down here, it's quite fun. If you've got a gravel bike, you won't have any problem with this particular road. If you've got a road bike, if you're careful, you can pick your way through it as well. It's not impossible to traverse on a road bike, just be a little bit careful. And if you've got some lightweight racing wheels, try to stick to the bits in between the potholes. But it can be a bit bumpy. I would certainly not suggest coming off the brakes here. If you've got a really nice road bike, you will wreck something, so just be a bit careful of that. And it also gathers a lot of water, and some of these puddles are actually surprisingly deep, so even if you think you've got a bike that's capable of doing it, you might catch yourself unawares with that, as several other people have done already. I haven't, but there again, I know this road quite well, and I don't tend to go stupidly down it. Not that I'm not stupid, but I don't tend to go stupidly down this one anyway. But yeah, when you come to the end of this road, it starts to open out a little bit more, and you can pick up speed, although the ground is still quite juttery, I must say. I will be getting a stabiliser for my sports cam here. These are quite good actually. I use a Ion Air Pro. I've got a couple of them, and they're bullet-shaped cameras, but they work really well with the light. I like the sensors are really, really good in it, so you get a nice crisp picture with good colour. But the stabilisation I don't think is as good as a GoPro. I've got a GoPro here that I'll put on and do a comparison with fairly soon. But as I say, with a stabiliser, I don't think the picture can be beaten, and it's waterproof, and apparently it goes down to about 30 feet anyway. To the right here we've got a garden centre, and we're coming out onto the main road that runs crisscrossing here, which runs back to Biggin Hill. On this particular ride, because I've used up my allocated time filming and stopping to film, I'd normally go straight across this junction and head over towards the A21, because that's also a nice undulating ride as well through there. But today we're going back through Biggin Hill. I'll try to keep the yeah, as I've chopped large parts of this out there because I didn't want to bore you with it. But it's actually a nice run back. It's mostly downhill. To the right here, to the right you can't see here, but Formula One management is at Biggin Hill Airport. That's towards the right in the big building there. You can't miss it. And the hangars and things that you can see to the right here under those clouds is the actual airport and the taxiways here. Occasionally you see all sorts of aircraft here, private jets. They do charters from the airport, which are, you know, if you could afford it, absolutely brilliant. I like to see the planes taking off and landing. There's a deck here where they have the landing lights to the left. I've stopped there and watched planes take off and land before, which is quite fun. But this section here, we're running down now towards the airport. As you can see, the lights here to the right and the lights to the left going over my shoulder is where I stand and take photos occasionally. But as you can see, it's a nice bit of road. If I panned left, you'd be able to see lots of fields and valleys towards left, which we've just actually gone down and up. To the right there's more greeny and plenty of trail rides to be done towards the right as well, which is nice, although you can't cross the runway obviously. There are bits and pieces that you can get access to the backs and the ends of the runway, and you can see planes a little bit clearer, but you will be lifting your bike over fence posts and things to get there. It's quite nice to do sometimes, and as long as you're careful and as they don't actually get onto the tarmac and things, there are a few accessible places that you can get to see better. This is where the chapel and the memorial place is. As you can see, it's got two gate guardians, a Spitfire and a Hurricane, Battle of Britain style, with the 8303 guns in them. Go further down here, there's a further dog training centre here, which I think the RAF and the police use. This is a fast bit of road if you're going in this direction, so you just come off the brakes and you're doing a steady 20-25 miles an hour easily here. Even I am. And if you're on a racing bike, it's, you know, you can just get into the drops and be Pogacar going down. Well, you might be able to, I'm not. But you can go quite quickly down here. This is the faster bit as you head down towards the pubs. Can't remember what the pubs are called. Used to go into one quite frequently, but I can't remember the name now. But as you descend down the hill here, there's a road that I take, which is on the left. It's quite a narrow road, and you come. It's Blackness Lane, I think. Yeah, Blackness Lane. But it comes up quite quickly, and you can see the junction here. It's a very, very narrow road. Do be careful. Lots of people. You catch quite a few walkers going up and down this, it is a beautiful road to walk up and down. Lots of cyclists going up and down it, and the odd car and van coming out. I've seen some quite big vehicles actually go down this road, and they barely fit. So just be aware that if you're coming down here, you might have to stop quickly, and there might also be a car coming up quickly as well. I've seen that a couple of times where you won't have anywhere to go if you're going too quickly down here. So just use it with a bit of caution. You could normally hear stuff ahead of you, but again, with the advent of electric cars and things these days, that's no guarantee you will hear what's going to hit you beforehand. So just be a bit careful. Anyway, where we come up to this junction here, we're coming up to in a second. It's a junction with Jackass Lane. There's also, if you go left, that's Jackass Lane. If you go right, that's Keston Church Road, which is another steep climb. Rises to about 22-23%, I believe. It's a nice climb. You can get up it if you've got the gearing, or if you've got the endurance. I don't have that. I stick with gearing personally. But anyway, at this junction here, as you can see, lots of lovely greenery. You can't beat it. I mean, if that doesn't make you feel better when you're going out, really, why are you out? But that's the steep one on the right. We're going left. It's a little bit undulating here actually, but it's still a nice road. You can build up a decent speed before you actually come to the little climb at the top here. It's a bit of an unusual road here actually, because despite all this beauty, at the very top of this little climb that we're coming up to now, there's an entrance to a field, and people keep fly tipping at this entrance, and you would think with this beauty here, you'd think, why would you want to spoil it by tipping out the contents of someone's front room here that they're remodelling? But it's happened so often now. To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind putting up a camera here to actually catch people. If the local government pay me for it, I'd put up a trail cam and actually get the registration plates of it here. It's such a desecration for people to dump stuff. As you can see, they've put concrete blocks there to stop vehicles going in too far. It was worse in the pandemic, I must say. There seemed to be lots of it going on. But anyway, here we come to the faster bit. Now we're starting to descend a little bit here. On the right hand side there's a entrance to a house here, and when I see the entrance I always know, as far as I'm concerned now, this is a walking distance for me to get home if something goes wrong with the bike. If it's a puncture I'll still repair it, because it's still a half-hour walk from home for me if I did it, but I have done it before. But yeah, anyway, once I've crossed that entranceway there, I think that's it. This is the home run now. Again, this is a very, very narrow road. Lots of vehicles use it both ways. There are sections with bends in here, and you won't see or hear vehicles coming up so easily when you're descending. When you're climbing you can, but when you're descending you've got the noise of the bike and you've got the coverage of the hedges either side, which restricts the amount of sound that will travel, so be a bit careful with that. But it's a great road, and whilst you can see where you're going, you can come off the brakes, I do anyway, and just imagine yourself just descending as fast as you can here. It does have a few tram lines in the road here, and because my bike has big tyres, I've got to be careful that I don't get dragged towards the left or the right occasionally. Caught me napping a few times when I'm fatigued, but I'm careful normally. Anyway, from this section on, it's on with the brakes because it's really narrow and you get cars and things climbing up here. Plus also you get groups of cyclists. Well, I've come down this hill before and found a whole 3 or 4 people wide coming up here, which is it's dangerous, to be honest, because as I say, I'm careful coming down these, but I've seen some people descend down here like a stone being dropped out of a passenger airliner, and it doesn't take much to have the two worlds collide with each other here, and you've got yourself a plane crash of an accident of carbon and blood. Anyway, just be a bit careful with these sort of things. Plenty of entrances and exits along here as well for people's houses. Don't see much action as far as cars go here, but obviously if people live there they are going to be pulling in and out, so be a bit careful. Lots of cyclists going up the hill. If that was me going up the other hill it would look like I was in freeze frame, but that's just me. Anyway, coming up to the junctions here, as you descend down here we're heading back to the home stretch now. There's a slight left turn if you fancy another climb. Just where we're coming up to the junction here, you can do a right and go up Fox Lane there, and that will bring you back down to the same road we're going to cross off here anyway. So if you went up there and then did a left, you could join back on the road we're going to come up to, which is the 232. This section of it is Gates Green Road now that we're coming up to here. You'll see in a section, and this is where we turned off originally, where we started the video, on the left hand side here in the junction. Look left, there you go. That's Nash Lane, that's where we started the ride off, and we're carrying on down Gates Green Road. This is fairly fast. I've done a bit of filming up and down here for previous videos. It's just nice and green basically. It's got dark and shade, so it looks quite nice too. I love the lane anyway. I use it on a lot of my rides out in Kent, because it's literally as soon as I turn it, I know I'm going to be heading off into greenery. Some of the roads are busier than others, but most of them I would say are not particularly busy, especially if you're coming from central London to do one of these rides out. They're really good roads. Anyway, we're heading back down towards Gates Green Road now. Sometimes if I'm feeling particularly powerful, I will put it into the big ring and push really hard down here and hit the dizzying heights of 25-30 miles an hour down this stretch. My bike's actually geared quite short, so quite literally at about 100 RPM I'm doing about 32 miles an hour. So I don't want to put a bigger ring on the outside ring. I'm quite happy with that. On some of the very steep descents, the bike will go faster, but I won't be pedaling it. For me, that's absolutely fine on this particular bike. It's not a fast road bike anyway. It can go quite quickly on road, but it's not what it's built for. It's built for climbing and carrying stuff, which is ideal for me. I like to take cameras and things out, so it's ideal. Hey, look at that day. Look, that's greenery and blue sky. You can't beat that. This is what it's all about. Some of these days, which have been a bit few and far between, I must say, this year, but that's what I live for. I live for getting out on the bike. I enjoy recording stuff for you so you can see it as well, and I hope a few of you, having seen this video here, might be tempted to try this route. I'll be putting a few more up of Kent round here. They'll all be kicking off more or less from just outside West Wickham anyway. But there's some really nice rides, and I think you'll really enjoy them if you gave them a try. So as we come up to the bottom here, this is the junction where you can go, where the mini roundabout is. You can go right here, which will take you down to the A232, or if you follow it to the left here, where we're going, will also take you to the A232. So whether you want to go east or west, that's the split up there that you want to do. The A232 as well will be the road that joins on to Fox's Lane, where I was directing you earlier on. If you want to come down a really fast hill, the A232's got that on there as well, although the road's a bit busier. But sometimes I do different exits and entrances for the rides, because it depends on what you want from your ride. Sometimes I feel like going fast, and other times I feel like just avoiding the traffic and sticking to routes that are nice and green and fun to look at. But yeah, this is called the Kingsway, this particular road. It will lead you down to it's got a DIY shop, I think it's Wickes at the bottom, but from there on you can turn left and head towards Glebe Way and West Wickham again, or you can go right at the crossroads that we're heading up to now, and that will take you down towards Coney Hall and Bromley direction. So it gives you a good idea anyway. As I say, the roads are pleasant, the houses are pleasant. I don't really talk to pedestrians as I'm going past. I'm usually going a bit quicker than them, and it's a bit strange to shout at them anyway. But other cyclists, pretty much everyone's pretty easy going around here actually. Apart from this chap in his car, he doesn't seem to care one way or the other who's going where. Manages to chop in front of me and then basically block me at the junction of the road. But hey, what can you do? But yeah, this is the junction, the A232. As you say, this is a nice road. If you could go to the right and go all the way up, there's a good climb up there as well, but the problem is it's a heavy traffic road, and it's not one I'd take on the cycle. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Give me a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.